In accordance with New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law, notice of this meeting has been provided to the Borough Clerk of Fanwood, Township Clerk of Scotch Plains, and the Scotch Plains Times. Prior to meeting in public, the board met in executive session where we discussed personnel matters, the harassment, intimidation, and bullying report, as well as the legal status report. Additions to the agenda. I see on our agenda there's a section for additions. We have 3S field trip request, 15 BUS. Actually, were these that are on our agenda, were these additions from our last meeting? Do I have to go through these or no?
He's talking about
These were on there last.
These were on, okay, so.
It's just what's on.
So it's, then we have 9 BUS award of bid for food service equipment, as well as 32 BUS painting of Terrell Middle School auditorium, 34 BUS award of transportation bid, route VT1, that's probably vocational tech, and other board business for OBB, ratification of the memorandum of agreement with the Supervisors Association. Do we have any other additions to the agenda? A couple more, we get up to 40 business items tonight. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. In accordance with policy 9322-R, we'll open the meeting for any public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board, we ask you to step to the microphone. All we need is the name and the town you reside in. This will be the first of 3 opportunities this evening for public comment.
Good evening, Gina Giacona, Scotch Plains. I wanted to share with the board and the community that yesterday we were honored with receiving a plaque for being nominated to the Collect a Million Pop Tab Club.
Fantastic.
Very exciting. Ronald. I wanted to thank everybody in the community that has helped out with collecting the pop tabs over the 5 years. It was a really long time to be collecting, but we did it. We had well over 1 million, and we're still, you know, collecting because it is for a great cause. Ronald came and visited all the elementary schools and did a little presentation explaining to the kids about how one little pop tab can make a difference in the world, and explained pretty much what Ronald McDonald House does. So it was a great experience, and I want to thank everybody for being a part of such a great collection. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board at this time? Seeing no one but one? Told you we have almost 40 business items. We're going to move.
This will be quick. I'm Sean Aiken, Scotch Plains. I'm just checking in on status of runner drop-off. I know that there's been some activity. I was just curious if there was any update that you'd be able to share at this point.
Mr. Aiken, there is, and I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Saradaki, who has been very involved over the last couple of weeks with moving forward with some of these things. Mrs. Saradaki?
Yes, we've met with the township and with school and with the police department. We've met with the PTA Executive Board, and we're scheduling a meeting for June 16th for parents and neighbors of Brunner School.
Is that a separate meeting specifically for that purpose?
Yes.
Okay, and that'll talk about all the details and the
Yes, we're
logistics?
sending out a survey towards the end of next week, so parents can respond to the survey regarding the drop-off, and then we'll have a meeting about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Aiken. Anyone else? Going once, twice, 3 times. All right, you have 2 more opportunities. I'm going to close this portion, and we'll move on to the first item on our instructional update. We're going to bypass committee reports now because although they can be compelling, you're not all out here to hear our committee reports tonight, I'm sure. So with that, I'll ask Dr. Kulikowski to step to the podium, state her name and the town she resides in, and
Ask all the presidents.
I would ask that all of the PTA presidents please step up to I'll call it the horseshoe area, please. as we have a couple resolutions to read.
Gene, if you'll join me. Okay, thank you, Tripp. The resolution reads as follows. Whereas the 8 Parent-Teacher Association presidents have served as president of their respective school PTAs for the 2013-2014 school year, working in concert with their school's principal and their PTA executive committees on behalf of the students, and whereas the PTA is comprised of families, teachers, administrators devoted to the educational success of children and the promotion of the parent involvement in the school, and whereas each PTA president's leadership in the PTA organization has worked tirelessly to secure for all children and youth in the highest advantages of all aspects of education, academic, social, and physical, and whereas our schools and children have truly been enriched by the PTA's partnership in the support of the district's mission to empower our community of individual learners to be successful citizens of the world. Whereas the Board of Education and the PTAs work together to benefit our schools and our communities. Most importantly, through your PTA leadership, you have made a difference for every child. Now therefore be it resolved that the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education recognizes and congratulates Gina Giancona, PTA President for the 2nd year at Scotch Plains Fanwood High School, Elizabeth Marcotte, PTA President for the 2nd year at Park Middle School, Pamela McGee, PTA President for the 1st year at Terrell Middle School, Rita Root, PTA President for the 2nd year at Brunner School, Lisa Devine, PTA President for the 2nd year at Cole School, Michelle Wyra, PTA President for the 2nd year of Evergreen School, Jennifer Power, PTA President for the 3rd year at McGinn School, and Kathleen Gumpel, PTA President for the 2nd year at School 1. We thank you for your leadership, guidance, integrity as PTA presidents of your respective schools, and thank you for your dedication and service to our children. Congratulations.
Rita, Lisa, Michelle Watt, and Kathleen Gumpel. Hold on, this is fine.
Mrs. Cleary, you have a resolution as well?
Yes, I do. Whereas Marcy Bowman completed her 2nd term as the president of PTA Council for the 2013-2014 school year, continuing to provide capable leadership for our district's PTAs, working in concert with the principals and the PTA executive committees on behalf of our elementary, middle school, and high school students. And whereas Marcy provided support to incoming and veteran PTA presidents throughout the school year. This collaboration is appreciated and helps ensure continuity of effort among our schools. And whereas Marcy kept in close communication with the superintendent through the year, these actions enhance achievement of district and PTA goals. And whereas our schools and the children have truly been enriched by the PTA's partnership and support of the district's mission to empower our community of individual learners to be successful citizens of the world. We work together to benefit our schools and our communities. Most importantly, through your PTA leadership, you have made a difference for every child. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education recognizes and congratulates Marcy Bowman for her leadership, guidance, and integrity as the president of the Scotch Plains Fanwood PTA Council.
Now is the, hold on a minute, ladies. Anyone wishing to take any photos, now is a good time.
All the pretty flowers.
You got them, okay. All right, then.
Oh, no.
Can we get one with Dr. Hayes?
Sure.
That actually would be quite appropriate, thank you.
That's right, yes. Terrific.
We'll let them take it.
Before we take the last picture, we would like to actually allow them to take their flowers.
One for each of you.
Thank you.
Do you want this doll? My daughter was at Ronald McDonald.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your service.
Very nice. Board members, comments?
Jennifer, I know how you feel. I did 3 years at Park Middle School.
Yes. Mrs. Warner?
I want to thank each of you very much for what you do. I couldn't do it. I really tried years ago, and you know, it takes a special kind of person to with a lot of skills, a range of skills, and you guys make all the difference in the world to the school system. I have said in the past, I'll say again, that one of the variables between a successful school district and those that are not so successful is the involvement of family, community, parents, and you guys are the ones that make that possible. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, because it's a really tough job, and you do it so well. You make it look easy, and you come out smiling at the end. I don't know how you do it. So thanks.
Very well said, Mrs. Warner. I knew it was going to come out like that. You would have gone last. That now I'm afraid to ask for other comments. That summed it up quite well.
Why,
But
thank you.
Anyone else want to attempt?
Well, I just
Go ahead,
want-
Mrs. Cleary.
Not anywhere as eloquently as Mrs. Warner, but having been through the PTA ranks, I appreciate how much time and effort goes into it and all of the hard work, but I also know the other side of it is that some of the closest friendships I've made were through that organization, and how well you come together to work together for the benefit of the children, and how collegially that organization is run. So I think that's to the credit of all the people who go through there over the years and have been able to, in this district, maintain that. So thank you for that. And for all the children in the room, you should really appreciate that these ladies are the ladies who provide all of the assemblies and all of the good things that are happening outside of the classroom, that support the teachers and you, so that you get those opportunities that you otherwise wouldn't get. And it's for all that hard work. And if your mom happens to be one of them, you know that sometimes she's not available because she's out running something that she needs to do. So thank you to you too.
Thank you, Mrs. Cleary. Anyone else? Ms. Winkler?
I'll make this a lot shorter and probably less eloquent, but thank you so much. It's wonderful to have parents that are involved to the level that you are, where you act as a liaison between the parents and the teachers, and the way you coordinate with the principals and sometimes the custodial staff, and often in the classrooms sometimes on some level, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Winkler. Anyone else? Mrs. Bauer.
I was just going to say thank you as well, and I know it's a big responsibility being a PTA president. I've always been interested in that word responsibility, because if you break it apart, you can think about it in terms of responding to your ability, and I know you all bring many talents and skills from your life that you've applied to the work that you've done this year, but you've probably also encouraged other people to take on responsibilities, and they probably said, I can't do that, I can't run that, and you've encouraged them to respond to abilities they may not have known that they had. And so I want to thank you for the work you've done and all the people you've also empowered in your schools, and future leaders, I'm sure that you've grown as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Bauer. Anyone else? There's a lot of cool things about being the president of the Board of Education. Going last on a night like this is not always the coolest part. I don't want to repeat myself, but trying to add a couple things and truly extend my sincere thank you and gratitude for all that you do for our district. I think it's telling that if towards the back of the room here, I see many of our principals and assistant principals, and you do work closely with them. The fact that they're here in support and recognition of the years, in many cases, that you've given in support of that particular building and to help them really does speak to the commitment that you have, the relationships that you've built with them. Doing things that you do as to some degree, there's some similarities as to serving on the board. There's times where you do get a thank you or two and a cookie or two, and you also get emails that tell you how it could have been done better. It does require a lot of times checking your ego at the door, and that's not always easy. We do it here, and we know that you do it there. You don't take your eyes off the end game, or the goal is the betterment of our district and for our kids, and you truly do embody that through the evenings away has been mentioned, and trying to bite your tongue as you're being told many times by people that you don't even see until after it's over and tell you how better they could have done it. We get that, and we do thank you for making our district better through all you do. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Hayes and see if there's anything any of us have missed.
I feel like Tripp's last graduation speech. Okay, check. They said that. They said that. I do want to thank each and every one of you. It is one of the greatest delights that I have as the superintendent of schools here to be able to work so collaboratively with each of you. You do work with your principals very closely. You work with the staffs in the schools. And I know that that sweet spot of finding the place where you can negotiate many viewpoints and gain consensus is not always an easy place to get to. But you do it with grace, you do it with great skill, and you always do it for the right reasons, which is for the children. As has been noted tonight already, I'd like to give a big shout out. You have a number of your fans here tonight. I see members of your families here supporting, so if you guys could all give a big wave, all the family members who are here. Because you make a big sacrifice when you permit members of your family to step up to the plate and take these leadership positions, because there are many nights that they're out. There's a lot of planning. There are lots of Saturdays. There are all kinds of events. And so we do appreciate all that you offer through them to help support our district. We have a very unique process in our PTAs, and we often see it when we attend things like the PTA county meeting, where we've done a great job of reinvigorating the Reflections program. We have a great turnout at those county meetings, and one of the nicest things to see there is the fact that it's not just our individual PTAs that are participating, but it is each of the PTAs through the PTA Council writ large. Not all districts can boast of having a very strong PTA council, and it does help strengthen our district because it not only helps to support you in your individual roles as PTA presidents, but it also keeps the PTAs working collaboratively together, and that benefits our district in innumerable ways. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, because this is a tough job, and you just make my job that much easier because I know that there are always go-to people that I can count on. You give me great feedback, and you're honest with me, and that helps make us a better district. So thank you all.
If I can just say to all of you in response
Certainly.
on behalf of all of these wonderful people that it's been a joy and an honor to get to serve with. I always say that volunteers get paid in kind words and compliments, and we're all feeling very rich right now. So thank you all very much. Have a great night.
Thank you, Marcy. Brings us to the next portion of our instructional update. I'll turn it over again to Dr. Hayes.
Okay, if some of you have young ones that need to get home, we won't be offended. We know you have busy schedules, but on the other hand, if any of you want to stay, you're welcome. So I just wanted to not make you feel that it was a difficult time to leave. If you want to leave, class is dismissed. If you want to stay, it's okay. You're welcome.
Thank you.
What did Justin do? He's on crutches.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
There wasn't a cast.
Okay, tonight it is my pleasure to introduce Majula Bajaj, who is our science supervisor, K-12. Some of you may recall that she was with us, come on up to the mic. Some of you may recall that she was with us earlier this year, where she was instrumental in helping to support our teachers in getting grants so that our students could participate in something called the E-Cyber Mission. And we're going to turn it over to Majula tonight to introduce some special guests who are here to update us on how that project went.
Thank you, Dr. Hayes.
And you need the overhead?
Yes, in a minute. Please.
Okay.
Actually, Dr. Hayes just said all I was planning to say.
Sorry.
That's okay. Makes my job easier. Thank you for having us here tonight. As you remember, in November, I had been given an opportunity to share with you some details regarding the two new initiatives that the science department was venturing into this year. And it's my pleasure to share with you tonight that the first one, Students to Science, we will have our last visit next week, June 6th, and that would conclude the program for this year. In fact, we got a bonus. We were able to get one free day for the high school also, so we were able to take our AP Biology and AP Chemistry students, 32 students, down for a full day of science experiments on organic chemistry. So that was a bonus. We got it free. And I don't say no to anything that comes free. Our second initiative, E-Cyber Mission Challenge, we've concluded successfully. And I don't like to use the word concluded because it was more of a journey on the philosophy and moving towards the next generation science standards. So even though technically the challenge is concluded, but our journey of changing or moving towards the next generation science standards has just started. And today I have here with me two of the middle school teachers, Mrs. Sarah Scalfaro, 7th grade science teacher from Terrell Middle School, and one of our students, Kyle Estivine, and Mrs. Amy Johnson from Park Middle School, 8th grade science, and two of her students, Olivia Barcia and Emilia Vidyat Mojo. Did I say that correct? Thank you. They're going to be sharing with us their experiences as they made this journey on the challenge, the eCyber Mission challenge. So I'm going to turn over the presentation to Sarah and Amy and the students.
I think they need the screen.
You do need the screen? Okay. Doing my job.
Stop paying you.
Lowercase I spelled.
Never seen you spell it, but I probably would. In fact, I think I have.
While this is warming up, we'll introduce ourselves. I'm Amy Johnson, and this is Sarah. And we're here just to show you the reflections from this year's eCyber mission.
Okay. Let's see. There we go.
Okay, so what is eCyber Mission? It's a web-based science, technology, engineering, mathematics competition that's sponsored by the U.S. Army Educational Outreach Program. So students in 6th through 9th grade are eligible to participate, and we had both Park and middle school in 6th through 8th grades that participated. And we use the scientific method to solve problems that the students come up with. And it's all problems that may occur in the community and how they can resolve and help the community resolve those problems. And this is very important. It has the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, which is the STEM science, which is the direction that science is now going in. So students had to pick from 7 mission challenges. They had alternative sources of energy, environment, food, health, and fitness, forces in motion, national security and safety, robotics, and technology. And with my group, because we had a very severe winter, a lot of them chose safety and ice and accidents that occur on ice and how we could prevent that, and also sports safety, because the concussion problem has been in the news a lot. A lot of students were concerned, some of them themselves having had concussions, or knowing either family members or friends that have had concussions. They had to do a mission folder, so it wasn't really just about the science part of it. It was also being able to put this folder together and to write a lot of this. So this required team collaboration. In the engineering part, they had to develop a problem statement, and they had to build a prototype or a model. And they had to test that prototype. They had to evaluate their results, and then they were to draw conclusions, and then say how this would benefit the community. If they chose to do the scientific inquiry part, many of the things were the same, except that they had to develop a hypothesis statement, and then they had to perform an experiment to either prove or disprove their statement. They had to collect data, they had to analyze the data, and then they had to draw a conclusion, whether it's successful, was it not successful, and then once again, they had to show how this was going to help the community.
All right, some of the responsibilities of the students, they worked on their projects in class as well as outside of class, and everything was done online, completed online. As well as we had some hard copies in the classroom in case the online kind of got messed up a little bit. They were also responsible for planning, designing, building their and testing their prototypes. They had to not only do that, but design their own testing device because they couldn't test on humans. So they had to design their prototype, but then also design the testing device, so it was twofold. Technology used, we used LabQuests, microscopes, Canavision cameras, laptops, just to name a few. So here are some examples from both middle schools.
So this was a 7th grade team, and they were measuring the force of a basketball because they wanted to test safety equipment with that. They used a force meter, and then they had to find out about force and how force is measured. This is another 7th grade team. They were concerned about students carrying backpacks that were too heavy and the effect that it has on their spine. And some students who already had issues with their spines, how could they better develop a backpack with some padding in it possibly so that they could evenly distribute the weight on that.
And you see how they're using wood and rulers measuring. They couldn't test on humans, so
right.
That's one of the examples there.
And that was one of the biggest things that they had to overcome, was the fact that they could not test on humans. Here's another group, and they were measuring the oxygen content of Elodea plants, so that are aquatic water plants. And once again, another group using the LabQuest, just taking some data.
In addition to a lot of concerns with the snow and sport injuries, another major topic were cell phones. How can they prevent cell phones from cracking, the screen cracking seems to be a common thing, or a cell phone that may be antibacterial, because we share our cell phones. So that was one of the other hot topics.
And here's a 6th grade team measuring the force of a baseball striking a mouth guard, because that we also had a few projects on how to better improve mouth guards so that if you do get hit, that you're not breaking your teeth. A 6th grade team, they wanted to examine the growth of bacteria, and so they were actually looking to see which dishwashing liquid was supposed to be better to clean dishes. And here they're using the Kenavision cameras, which we received a grant for 2 years ago. And so we're using that with the microscope there, so that projects the image on the laptop so we can have real-time viewing of that and the students can discuss what they see all at the same time.
And here Katie Z from 7th grade stated that eCyber mission was a wonderful experience with a lot of hands-on work that required a lot of responsibility for each team member. We worked intensely and got a taste of what real scientists do.
And Gabriella Kay says that cyber mission was a difficult task that challenged me. It also let me gain knowledge in areas like teamwork and how science will be in the future. I liked how I was in charge of my project. What I mean is the students picked the idea and had all the power, not the teachers.
And so we were blessed with a grant. The grant was used towards a PD day, December 2nd, when we had a representative from eCyber Mission come in and brief us on exactly what is eCyber Mission. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into, so we had to talk about the entire process and how to use the online database and everything. So that was a very important day for us. And also the money went towards purchasing many materials for the students. Which really helped them and encouraged them to do really get into their projects when they don't have to put their own money into it. They were very happy.
All right, so
we'll go over this.
Okay, so the goals achieved. We had all 12 staff members that signed on, that we were all team advisors. And for the grant, we needed 1,000 students to register to qualify for the district grant of $21,000. And we're happy to report that we had 1,307 students that actually submitted mission folders. And so that was 307 more than we projected. So it was really a success. And then we also had a post-submission survey that we completed by the students, that was completed by the students.
And here are the survey results. We found that most students found it easy to collaborate with their team members within the classroom setting. They did find it a little bit difficult to get together after school, especially since most of their project and equipment were at school. So there were many times that we stayed after school with the students to work on their projects. The next set of data refers to how they enjoyed the problem solving, how it reflected on the community, and the real world connection. So you can see that they tend to be very positive.
And the real world connection is big because they have to be able to connect what they're doing to what's going on in the outside world. Otherwise, it's really not very meaningful to them.
And then the experience increased my interest in science. Pretty neutral there. But they did, what was interesting, we asked them also what branch of science interests you most, and we saw an increase in engineering, chemistry, a lot of topics that weren't really hot topics when we were walking around and talking to them during our classes.
The great thing about the Cyber Mission Project also was that, for example, in 7th grade we teach life science, but students didn't have to stay within that science. If they were interested in physics, they could do a project on physics or anything in chemistry. So they had the ability to be able to choose what project they wanted and in what area that project would be. The results of the competition, there was a rubric. They were based between 200, well actually there was a 0 that you could get. I'm happy to say that none of our students did receive that. But the score was between 200 and 500. And I'm also happy to say that most of our students were in the 300 to 400 range, which is really very good. This was a very intense competition. And it was very difficult for most of the students since they had never done anything like this before. So to be in that 300 to 400 range is a good thing.
So now would be a nice opportunity to bring up some of our students. Would you like to introduce?
Sure. We have Kyle Estevine, who is a 7th grader.
So to start off, what my team did was we created a moving table for people with arthritis, because we know that could be hard to bend down and get stuff and walk around to different places because it hurts their joints. And when we started off, we knew that it was going to be very hard to do this because we're not really as experienced to, like get wires and stuff throughout the table and to be able to move it like that and put wheels on it. But what we did do was we constructed the table and we conducted many tests on different types of flooring to get the speed, and we put weights to see how fast it would move with weights on them. And when we handed in the mission folder, we were very happy because we knew that we did a very good job with the materials that we had, and it was a very fun project. And looking back on the Cyber Mission, I do see all the teamwork that was needed because I learned many things about different people and how we needed to learn about others and others' work ethic and in order to work together properly. And in the end, I believe that Cyber Mission was a very cool project. I liked it a lot. And I think that Terrell and Park should continue doing it because I want to continue doing it in 8th grade and 9th grade.
That's great.
And now I'd like to have Amelia and Olivia come up. They have a little demo for you guys. They're 8th grade students at Park Middle School.
Oh, wait 1 second, hon. We'll get you the microphone.
Our project was basically to help, because we live in a very cold community in the winter, so we made a project to help people resist slipping on ice. Our idea was to create a boot that would have enough friction to help you not slip on ice. So we tested a few different materials on the bottom of the shoe to add friction, and we also tested different materials to come out of the shoe, such as rock salt, to melt the ice.
So the different materials we used for the friction testing was felt, foam, and carpet, and we also used sandpaper, as you can see on the bottom. So we tested these different materials, and we found that that sandpaper had the most friction. Therefore, we put it on our prototype.
We also tested a few different materials to melt the ice, such as rock salt, baking soda, and sand. And it ended up being that rock salt was the fastest melter. So we took sandpaper and rock salt and we punched holes in the boot, and as you walk, it comes out, and therefore melting the ice. Not instantly, but it helps a bit.
That's great.
It is a great idea.
That is great. Yeah. Okay.
So in the end, we really liked the project and how we were able to choose our own topic, although we had some trouble of working after school and actually working together. But in the end, it turned out to be a really fun project and really successful, as you can see.
Yes.
Thank you.
Pretty soon we're going to see the their walkways.
Yeah.
All right, so as they mentioned, and we mentioned that the students take on the role of the scientist and engineer. They really step into those shoes. Throughout the process, we use STEM. We really use the engineering design process, which is huge in STEM. So they were really able to do that as well. We do it a lot in 8th grade, not so much 7th and 6th. So it was a nice introduction to for 7th and 6th graders. Students became more independent thinkers. They had to find their own answers and use resources that they don't usually use. Like, what is a book? You know, like, how do I find resources in a book? And so they're so used to just looking up on a phone. So they had to really go into newspapers, different types of resources, ask people. A lot of them had scientists that are friends of the family that they contacted, which was really cool. They were more engaged in their learning throughout the whole process. Everybody was hands-on. They used teamwork to problem solve. And it also introduced the next generation science standards. It really covers the next generation science standards, which includes science and engineering, disciplinary core ideas and science concepts, and cross-cutting concepts, that interdisciplinary factor, because they had to do a lot of writing, they had to do math, they had to do their data. A lot of this, when we compared, when we got our results, a lot of it was the writing, being able to organize their thoughts, to be able to cite their resources properly. That's where they got a lot of extra points.
We also were able to collaborate with our colleagues, because it wasn't, as I said previously, it wasn't just the science that they had to do. In filling out the mission folder, it was quite involved. So sometimes we would go to our language arts teachers to say, you know, this is what we're working on here, you know, do you have any suggestions on how we can do that? And sometimes the students themselves did that, also with the math teachers, and also with our science teachers, because, as I said, sometimes they had questions in physics that maybe one or a few of us were not that familiar with, so that we could go to each other and use each other as resources too. And also the cyber mission challenge, they also had cyber guides that you could call and that the students could email, that if they had questions on things that maybe we were not able to help with. But with everything that you have some pros and some cons. So one of the things too that we had was computer access. So we were at Terrell were able to work out a schedule so that we would have, for example, I had the laptops 2 days a week, and then another teacher would have it for 2 days. And so we were able to make it work that way. And as the students referred to, sometimes the collaboration after school was difficult for them. This was mostly a school project in the classroom that we did. And I would say the time constraint, I think with almost everything that you do, there's always a time constraint with guidelines.
There was, we each did it a little bit differently, so it's nice because we'll be able to learn from each other. Some of us did, myself, I only had the laptops, like maybe one tops 2 days a week. So I worked on e-cyber mission for 2 to 3 days during the week, and then I worked a little bit on the curriculum. And it had its positives and negatives because it was split up the curriculum a little bit, it split up e-cyber mission a little bit. So, and then other teachers, they just went straight on for a few weeks. So that's something that we do have to reflect on and figure out what works best for next year.
So moving forward, so we plan to put a winning strategy in place because we will probably do this again next year. So possibly a PD day with our science department to collaborate. And we can attempt to infuse this program. I know that I have already started to use this STEM and scientific method in my lessons.
And maybe even have the students choose a topic that is relative to our curriculum. So it's intertwined there. And then include other content areas as we move through the process. So like we said, if we had a little bit more time, which we hope to have next time, because we kind of jumped into the process a little late, that we would maybe print out their cyber mission folders and have them peer edit, or have the writing workshop teacher work something into her class as they worked on their conclusions or something. So we would definitely go into more cross-content areas. The other thing is the 7th grade service learning. We would like to coordinate with them because this is very similar but very different at the same time. So, and I know, and it happened like one right after the other. So some of the students were very burnt out this year from doing in the 7th grade, from the e-cyber mission to the service learning. So we would like to collaborate with them so that maybe we could work together to maybe connect them, as well as the Park Science Fair. This year, the Park Science Fair occurred a week after the end of e-cyber mission, and usually they do their own science fair projects in addition to whatever we're doing in class. They do everything completely on their own. And this year it was a little confusing for them, like, can I bring my e-cyber mission? And if I do, does my whole team have to come with me? So we would like to just clarify the new rules for the Park Science Fair so we could continue making it a successful event. And then also come up with a timeline so that we could start in September instead of waiting until December, and work out something gradual that we can work over time.
So all in all, it was a success. The students enjoyed it, and we hope to do this again next year. And we just want to thank everyone that was involved in that for their support. And as I said, hopefully next year we will have a better year and maybe have some winners.
Dr. Kulikowski.
I really love those boots. The idea with the salt coming out, and it's also give people a few inches in case they're
Did they have to leave?
Altitudinally challenged.
Did they have to leave? Oh, okay.
That's okay.
Oh, no, I see, you're not getting away without answering a question. That's just, I'm sorry, Mr. Lane.
I had a question for the students, but I guess it'll have to be for Kyle.
Kyle, would you step to the microphone, though, so that the people watching on TV, this gets taped, can hear your answers?
How are you?
I'm good.
I was just curious to know, did this change your attitude toward the future in the sciences? Did this make you think more favorably toward looking into the sciences down the road, or were you already thinking about that?
Yeah, I was already thinking about being a doctor, so I like science a lot.
Okay.
And ever since I was little, I always get like those little rock salt things where they grow up and come into like a crystal. I like those things, and I really like science.
Good.
Don't leave yet.
Hey, you know what? Stay up there, because right now you're the show, so all questions are going to you. When you hear student, think Kyle. Any other comments or questions?
Kyle, you spoke very well tonight, too. Your presentation was excellent.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Yes, Mrs. Warner.
I was also very impressed with your presentation. You really did a nice job on that. I don't know if Mom and Dad helped, but
was a lot of me talking in the mirror.
Can you tell me if you enjoyed the work?
Yeah, I liked working outside of class because the way that me and my group talked, we were able to meet outside of class for 3 days, and we constructed the table at my friend's house, and it was really fun to see each other outside of school.
I gather some children had a harder time meeting outside of class. What enabled you to do that?
We all had like Gmail accounts and iPhones, so we kind of just like texted each other times to meet up and meet up.
Were you able to walk to the other houses? Or?
Nah, my dad had to drive.
Thank you, Dad.
Thanks, Dad.
Okay.
Is that all the questions?
Mr. McFall, did you have a question?
Yeah, I could sit back and just think about all the things that you've done, the organization skills that you had to go through, all the various roadblocks and that. You put it all together in a package here to present to us. It makes so much sense when you sit back. But you're thinkers, okay, far in the future with what was accomplished here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McFall. Ms. Ballard?
Yes, when you were presenting, I was thinking about a joke that Bill Cosby used to tell about when I bend over to, now that I'm getting older, when I bend over to tie my shoes, I ask myself what else I can do while I'm down. So I identify with, I'm really interested in your table. And I'm sorry you didn't have a prototype here. But maybe you'll come back and demonstrate it, so. And I do also want to compliment you. One of the nicest things I think about the board meetings is when we do have students who talk and share, and we love the teachers too, but it's always special to also have the students. And you do have wonderful presence. So thank you.
Yes, Mrs. Cleary. You're not done.
Kyle, not yet.
There's 9 of us and superintendents and...
Kyle, just to add to the comments, it was a wonderful presentation, and you should be very proud of yourself. But I did have a question for you in terms of how your group was selected. Were you able to, did you pick the people in your group, or were you matched up by the teacher?
We were matched up by the teacher, but I'm actually glad that we were matched up by Ms. Scalfaro, because I think that if I did work with the people that I was closest with, I think we might have not got as much work done.
Very interesting.
And I think we might
very
be
honest and interesting.
But meeting new people, I feel that they're closer friends than they were before, and I want to thank Ms. Scalfaro for not having us pick our own groups, because, yeah.
That's great. That's important information to have, so thanks so much. I appreciate that.
I have a question also.
Yes,
Not
Mrs.
a question,
Schumer.
but a statement. I'm just surprised that you picked something for people that are so far out of your generation that you would think that it would be something that you guys were thinking about for yourself, and you didn't do that. You're thinking about other people, and that touched my heart that you went to those poor people with arthritis.
Yeah.
Do you have somebody in the family?
No, it's just that there's a lot of those commercials, and
Oh,
we wanted
okay.
to help them with.
Very nice.
That's great. You have a big heart.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Mrs. Winkler.
So I want to congratulate you. It was a really nice presentation. It sounds like your project went pretty well, and a pretty cool idea that you came up with, and it's neat how it worked out. But I'm curious to ask you what kind of challenges you might have encountered while you were working on this.
It was really hard at first because I had my own idea of like creating like a practice system that helps you like throw like footballs better, and like trains your arm to throw farther and longer and more accurate. But then when I realized that there are a lot of people with arthritis, like 6 out of 10 people have arthritis, and it's better to help them than to help sports players, because not a lot of people are sports players. And it really, clicked in my head that we need to do that more otherwise than like football and stuff.
The lessons we learn in many aspects for these type projects. that Mrs. Scalfaro does have a role in dividing and making sure things are done correctly, and empathy for others and prioritizing. One thing I did take, though, from both your project and the one we were able to see with the boots, that I think, the old unintended consequences, that this was a wonderful project, we're looking to continue it. I think what may have to happen, though, is come 8th grade in our, I'm thinking it probably would belong in the social studies realm. We'll have to speak with Ms. Baxter, the supervisor there, is based on what we've seen, we're going to need a patent law class introduced because there's such potential there for these ideas. They're not just drawing board ideas. That's something I really appreciated, the fact that I think it would encourage you more to be able to have an end result that you can pick up and touch and move, and as you were saying, you weren't sure about the wires and all that, but seeing how that comes together. I'm a visual learner, and being able to envision what you were saying with your table, to be able to have seen that, and with the Boots project, that that's all I was thinking was, that our board attorney, I wonder if he does patent law, because we've got, a budding market here if we were to continue on in years to come. The other piece with the first off, for the adults, the cross-content resources that Ms. Johnson, Ms. Scalfaro were mentioning, I applaud you. That's something personally that I've wanted to see, and we do that, but to see it with a long project where it comes out of the science department, but it encompasses language arts, math, that's truly the learning process, is to be able to pull in. You're not able to just, in this world, say, I'm just going to concentrate on language arts today, that there's going to be other components of curriculum that are going to be interspersed with our daily lives every day. Towards that end, Kyle, I'm guessing the hands-on part was fun and interesting. What were your thoughts on when it came time to graph data or write up from the language arts piece? You seem like a pretty high flyer, but I'm not sure how comfortable you are in all the different contents. Like the areas where you weren't as strong. How did that help you? How did this project impact you?
So like the areas where I wasn't as good as my teammates, we kind of worked with like one another to kind of like help each other almost. And the parts that I weren't good at, I was taught how to be better at them by my teammates. Okay. And it was really cool because we taught each other and we learned from each other. It was fun.
That's so wonderful to hear. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience with us.
No problem.
Do you have any comments, Dr. Hayes?
I want to thank you, Kyle. You've done an amazing presentation tonight, and you've just had your poise all through all this questioning, which is just a wonderful place to be. And by extension, I'd like you to thank your classmates for me, because the reality is, we do know that this was the first time as a district that we jumped into this, and as the teachers have attested, they really did jump in with both feet, and they didn't have a ton of advance notice because the grant came, we were fortunate to get it, and everyone jumped on board. We know that we can learn to do it better, and I particularly appreciate the teachers' reflections on how it can be done better, because that is the nature of always improving, that we try something, we make it better, and we reflect, and then we move on. So any feedback that students have helps enrich that process. So you should have your teammates and your fellow students give your teachers feedback so that they know in terms of how they can help support you to make it better moving forward. The other thing I'd like to commend all of you on are the we often focus on the content area skills, and they're very, very important. But it's also the other skills that students derive from projects such as this that are equally important. Learning how to tackle a project, learning how to prioritize, learning how to be resourceful and resilient to see it through to the end, to find those ways to cooperate and work as a team, are the kinds of skills that we know help make people successful in the world of work. And those are skills that you only get better at by actually doing. So our students have a real leg up if they get to start to do those things early on. So my thanks to the teachers, my thanks to your supervisor, Mrs. Bajaj, for bringing this opportunity to us, but most importantly for the teachers for jumping on board and being willing to go down that road. And mostly to the students as well, because the students are the ones at the end of the day who really make it work. And I know that there are parents out there that also had to give a lot of support, because whenever you have to go outside of the classroom to get students to come together, that does put pressure on families. And we know that everybody's time is valuable, and sometimes those kinds of challenges make it a little difficult. But I think when you see the end result, it's well worth the effort. So my thanks to the families who are here tonight. I'd like to give a shout out to the PTA that's still here, and to our principals who are still here, hanging in at this late time for this presentation, and commend all of you for your work. Thank you.
Okay, a little housekeeping before we continue. First off, Catherine, how are we on the tape?
I switched already.
Okay, then let's circle back to the first instructional update. Could I have a motion on those resolutions?
Motions were made.
Or the motions
We need
were made?
seconds.
Okay, could I have seconds on each of those two motions?
Since I read.
Amy did it. Amy said something.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
It was Jen.
No one gets thrown in jail for breaking Robert's rules. Okay, moving on to our agenda. The letters to the board, they were both discussed at our last meeting, so we'll go to the I'm sorry. Before we get to the superintendent's report, committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? Dr. Kulikowski.
Well, the negotiation team for supervisors met last night, and the meeting went very well. So later in the agenda, we will be making a motion to accept the agreement as we had discussed in exec.
Thank you, Dr. Kulikowski. Any other committee reports? Okay.
Reports in the first half of the month.
Right. Seeing none, then we'll go on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehouse. Tonight, I would ask that the board approve the out-of-district placements as they are listed on the agenda. We
So
have
moved.
two.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Go on.
2S, I would ask that the board approve the superintendent's decisions in the 11 harassment, intimidation, and bullying investigations reported to the board during the month of April, based upon my reports with the board during executive sessions on April 10th and April 24th, 2014.
So moved.
I'll second.
Questions or comments on HIB? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next.
3S, I would ask that the board approve the field trip so that our varsity football players and their coaches can travel to Jets headquarters in Florham Park. In this program, they will learn about football operations, philosophy, strategy, motivation, nutrition training, and conditioning experiences.
So moved.
Second. Go Jets.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next.
4S, I would ask that the board approve the curriculum matrix for 2014-15 for the upcoming school year.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments on the curriculum matrix? Sarah Dackey, would you please call the roll?
Yes, who made the second?
I made the second.
Thank you. Mrs. Winkler?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleary?
Yes.
Dr. Kulikowski?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mr. McFall?
Yes.
Mrs. Schirmer?
Yes.
Mrs. Warner?
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
Mr. Whitehouse?
Yes.
5S, I would ask that the board approve the appointment of Mr. Justin Fiore, School 1 Principal, as the certified administrator for the 2014 Creative Summer Workshops.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments on Mr. Fiore? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And then I would ask that the board approve the personnel agenda as discussed in exec this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments on personnel? Mrs. Saradaki, would you please call the roll?
Mr. McFall?
Yes.
Dr. Kulikowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Cleary?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Mrs. Schirmer?
Yes.
Mrs. Winkler?
Yes.
Mrs. Warner?
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
Mr. Whitehouse?
Yes.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Hayes. For those following along here that may or may not be aware, items that are asterisked are being voted on tonight. Items that aren't asterisked have been voted on at the first meeting. As this is the second meeting of the month, we're blowing through some of this stuff because they're typically introduced at our first meeting and there's discussions taking place then. So we kind of move fast during the second meeting unless I stop to explain things. But just so you know why we kind of move a little quickly on these items, just to keep you up. We like visitors, and we want to make sure you can comfortably follow along. Okay, with that, for the second out of 3 times tonight, in accordance with policy 9322-R, we open the meeting for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board, same drill as the first time. We just need you to step to the microphone, name, and the town you reside in.
Hello, my name is Danielle Borick. I'm from Scotch Plains. I came here today because my daughter is a 7th grader at Terrell, and she actually participated in Eastside Mission. I was a little disappointed that we didn't get to speak. Of course, we're following protocol before the science supervisor left. I was disappointed also that some parent information wasn't extracted, that there wasn't some sort of a follow-up with the parents on it. My daughter is a 7th grade girl, a very typical girl, very prone to detail, and likes things done just so. She was put in a group with children, and as is with group projects, it doesn't always work, and we all know that, and that's part of human nature, to work with each other. But the time constraints put on this on both ends actually are a problem that I think need to be addressed if this goes forward next year, which apparently it is. There was not enough time for the project. The project was somewhat of a fantasy presented to them. Create something. My daughter decided to create and her group, a wetsuit that would float should you be out surfboarding and you get hit in the head, you would rise to the surface. We are not equipped in our house to do that, nor are any of the other children, and they wanted to because they thought they had to. We did this every single day. It was discussed for over 6 weeks. I spent a lot of money on different objects. Materials were not provided because, as you can imagine, every child's project's different. They require different things. The children worked as best they could. It was a problem after school with time constraints. The other problem is on the other end. I have a very diligent student. She is so upset that the curriculum wasn't followed, and that now as we're ending the school year, we're not finishing the science curriculum. Her teacher was told we're just not going to have time to do certain things. She was also upset that this was told to her that it would count as 2 test grades. And when you're dealing with a group of different children with different learning capacities and time constraints, it was something that really stressed her out. I had to reach out to the teacher twice to say, we're trying to build a wetsuit in our house. The other students are trying to build a wetsuit. It's not working. She's falling apart. It shouldn't be like this. Now, I hate to complain without offering positive suggestions. This is going forward next year. 7th grade with service learning and this combined is way too much on both parents and students. I have had a boy who's done service learning. On a different note, I don't want to go off there, that was very hands-on for me. With my daughter, it was less hands-on. However, with that and cyber mission, a lot of stress that really shouldn't have been there. I would suggest that this is an amazing extracurricular activity, amazing, especially for anyone with an interest in science. Another thing, should this go forward, and if they don't want to make it an extracurricular because of the grant and the way it's spelled out, this should be maybe presented as options by the teacher on types of projects, and maybe the students work as a class for a week or two, do this intensively, work on all the problems, work together, and then be done with it and go back to what they're learning. They would start a chapter, the chapter would fall off, they'd go to Eastside Remission. A few days of that would fall off, they'd go back to where they were. It didn't flow. So those are my suggestions. It's great that we're getting grant money. It's great that children are passionate. My daughter did not like the project. She did write that. There was no feedback from students with problems. That may have been another avenue that should have been explored with this going forward to work out kinks. Students who maybe had suggestions on why they didn't like it and how to fix it, and from parents, the time, the cost, the stress, and the disruption of the curriculum. My only fear is if we keep disrupting the curriculum and we're not going to finish what we set out in the beginning of the year too, we're falling behind other districts. So I hate to be negative, wanted though to bring this to you so that an evaluation is made with different perspectives and possibly all kinks be worked out for next year, as, you know, especially with 7th grade. I'm done with 7th grade, this was my youngest, but next year those 7th graders, there's a lot on their plate. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Bork. What I would suggest, and I wrote these things down because they're important, I appreciate the input. The Board of Education is a policy-making body that reacts to or reacts to recommendations through our superintendent. And this is good information, and I'm personally interested in it. But where this needs to go to is, first off, Mrs. Bazage, or the teacher and the supervisor, because where you're saying, oh, this is going, it looks like it's going to happen next year. Quite honestly, the 21,000, although it wasn't enough for wetsuits, and I don't mean to
No, absolutely not, no.
I having gone through the system and some of the projects we've dealt with over the years, I semi-get what you may have gone through.
Projects cost money at home, it's just
and sometimes you're saying you want to do what, but I digress. The point being is, while we heard good things about this from the students, we're hearing some of the other side as well. We're not going to make that decision unless it comes through Dr. Hayes, who would get that from Ms. Bazage, who, quite honestly, and I didn't want to prolong it, but one of the things that I was going to give another hurrah to our educators are, the reason this became a district-wide grant in the middle schools was that going back, I think we heard the story around November-ish or so, that Ms. Bazage had put out to her science teachers that, hey, this grant is available, is anyone interested? And I think the dollar values were about $1,000 per teacher. And the problem was the timing of when she got this information to when she sent out the email. It was basically, and you have today to get back to me. And she said she sent it out in the evening. By the next morning, she started in her inbox getting all these proposals from the science teachers. They sent them in, and it wound up getting bundled. That's how we got the 21K versus individual $1,000 ones. My point being is that there's no guarantee that that's going to happen again next year. It sounds like they're going to go for it because they felt there was value. From what we saw, there's value with kinks that need to be cleared out. But my point is, it's good for me to hear this, for us to hear this, but unless Dr. Hayes, again, through Mrs. Bazage and the teachers, make that like it moves up and then we just say, yes, we would vote to accept that grant. I don't know if you have, but that's where these changes and tweaks, however you want to
Right.
phrase it, that's where they would take place to make this better and to make it right for all of our students, if at all possible. Because for any board member to say, hey, this needs to be done, we would be so way out of bounds from what we're supposed to be doing. So again, it could help us when it comes to us, if it were to come a year from now, to have this information to say, hey, from what Ms. Borick had said from a year ago, some of the issues that maybe anecdotally some of the students ran into, have we worked on a plan that hopefully will work some of those kinks out? We're not the ones that will impact it. I don't mean to pass the
Right.
buck, I just want you to understand how it's done.
And as a parent, then I would ask Dr. Hayes if, we're not asked that much, we're not asked often for feedback after events. We hear about this through the grapevine that something's going on at the Board of Ed, and we come down here for different specific events. I'm not here all the time. You've not seen my face that often. But I do come when I hear something that I have something I think could be contributed. I do think, though, the parents should be asked about that, Dr. Hayes. Maybe, I had expressed my problems to Mr. Ritter directly a few times with my daughter. I think that it would be great if the parents were asked some feedback on it. Because as, yourself, the board, even the teachers, they don't often know how much we do spend for these projects and how much time goes into it and the stress level at home. Some projects are great because they are all in the classroom. This was not that. So that was all I could say is it would be great, Dr. Hayes, if people could get back to the parents of the teachers. And I was disappointed that the superintendent had left because I would have liked her to have heard this.
Well, first of all, she's only a phone call away.
Right.
So I always encourage parents you started with the teacher, but it would have been helpful also to share your concerns with her, because she is open and she will listen. You heard tonight the teachers did talk about pros and cons. Right. And they are aware that it was the first time they did it, and they are aware that there are adjustments that need to be made. To Mrs. Bajaj's credit, she did present to me early on that potentially in the 7th grade, we had an overload relative to the service learning with the eCyber mission. We didn't know at the beginning of the year that we would be doing eCyber mission because it was a grant that came up, and she had no way of anticipating the enthusiasm of the teachers for signing up for the grants, nor were we sure that we would get the grants. So in some respects, this is a very good problem to have, because we have teachers who are enthusiastic about widening their skills, and we had these resources to do this and to get the training for them. I do know that she's already reflected on the fact that there is a way potentially to look at coordinating the types of projects with the grade level curriculums more closely. In the first time out, you heard some of the students reflect on how cool it was for them to be able to choose their topic. There may be ways to make it more curriculum-centered so that the pull and the tension that the teachers even acknowledge between getting through a curriculum and doing these other things can be better adjusted. The other piece is that we did think about whether or not in 7th grade we would back off of the service learning, but we also did not have any way to know how successful the eCyber mission would be. And so before you take something out, you want to see through to see what the constraints are. In some cases, some students had the opportunity to take the project that they did in eCyber mission and extend that into service learning. Because if they had identified a community of need, there were parallels that could be used so that it didn't have to become 2 separate projects. They could actually extend one. So your feedback is really helpful, and we will reach out and get additional feedback from other parents as well. And we are in the process of reflecting on how to make it better. But the other thing that I would point out is that this was still a very exciting process because it requires a shift in terms of the teacher's approach to making the students the center of the instruction, as opposed to just giving them a curriculum that the kids have to respond to. And that shift is fundamental. It does address what's coming down the line in the next generation science standards. So I would suggest that we are ahead of the game in comparison to some other districts because we've had this rich experience.
Right.
But the feedback is well taken, and we do appreciate it very much.
Thank you. And I also, just one other note, I don't think parents know to give feedback. I have to be honest.
Well,
May I just interject here for
Yeah.
a minute? I actually am on the curriculum committee, so I saw this presentation that you saw tonight earlier in not tonight, but last week or so in committee meeting. And one of the things that we did talk about was that they recognized the fact that, due really to the time constraint of how it was rolled out, that they're really, I'm a parent of a seventh grader too, as you know. And so a lot of what you're speaking to, I see firsthand that it's a challenging year. And they did address the fact that they, going forward, would definitely want to see more information for parents, like proactively and throughout the process. And the other things that Dr. Hayes is speaking about, you know, are all on the table of talking about, but they recognize that because of the next generation standards, that there really needs to be some kind of a shift, and that's why there was a lot of stress, if you noticed tonight, on the cross-content areas and all of that, which is very, and I'm sure you wouldn't disagree with me, I know.
Absolutely.
But I've heard what you've said, and I know that at one point, even during the curriculum committee meeting, it was mentioned that perhaps for back-to-school night, it would even be a factor there, where we would have something prepared for back-to-school night, and the process would start much earlier in the year, which I think would alleviate, personally, some of that rush. And you have to imagine, too, that different teachers have different, as we all do, different techniques or coping mechanisms for how to incorporate that. And there was really no answer for them. So they were kind of learning on the fly themselves this year, but they have learned a lot. And I think that one of the key things they learned is that it's really critical to put the parents in there, too. And maybe a little clarity about the science behind the wetsuit and not necessarily building the wetsuit, which, God bless
We got
her.
lost in the detail. Exactly.
Absolutely.
But I find that often with seventh graders, we get
Absolutely.
lost in the detail, and the parents, you're at home trying to extrapolate where we're going.
I live it every day.
Yes, I know you do.
So I did want to just add that, because they are aware of it, we are aware of it, and those discussions are ongoing. So I think that as presentations go, even the fact that on the slides there was the pro and con, you don't always see that.
Okay.
And I think that's really an acknowledgement of the fact that this was the first year out of the box, and we have a lot to be proud of, and it was very successful, but that doesn't mean it went smoothly or flawlessly, or that there aren't things that can be adapted and improved upon. So
perfect. Thank you.
Right, sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Bork.
Thank you.
Hope to see you back. Anyone else wishing to come to the microphone?
Hi, my name is Rubina Bard from Scotch Plains.
Hi.
Basically, I'm also a mother of a seventh grader, and I'm reiterating what Mrs. Borick just, brought to your attention. So I wasn't under the impression. Well, I guess I thought that maybe the board had some decision-making powers. That's why we came with our issues tonight. But I could just be very brief and say that my daughter did not actually have a very good experience with this project. She's a very diligent, dedicated, good student, and science actually happens to be her favorite class. She loves the teacher. But unfortunately, the way the groups were picked, she ended up being in a group where the other kids were not that motivated. And in the end, she basically did all the work herself, brought home a lot of work, was very stressed out about it because getting a good grade is important to her. And I do understand this was the first year it's being implemented, and believe me, I'm all for thinking out of the box and you know, having ideas that relate to world life situations. You know, I'm an engineer myself, but I just feel the way even the topics were picked, there was a very short amount of time. I think it was just one class period where the kids, okay, now they were put in a group and had to come up with a project. So several ideas flying around and not enough time, so they had to just pick the best one, and the teacher can help only so many kids. And I feel that some of these projects were not very feasible, as Danielle mentioned, that you know, they were very hard to implement in any way. And the parents ended up doing a lot of the work as well. And I don't want to sound negative, because I do believe it's you know, it's a good idea, but I'd like to know how exactly they plan to you know, iron out all these kinks next year, so hopefully we don't have the same situation.
Right. Well, you heard the teachers reflect, and we heard in the curriculum committee, because the report that they gave to the curriculum committee was very thorough. And they did talk about the fact that in different schools and in different teachers under their direction, there were different ways in which the groups were chosen. In some cases, children were assigned to groups, and you heard one young man tonight say that was a good thing, because he learned to work with other children that he didn't know before, and it was helpful to him. In some cases, the kids were actually allowed to choose their own groups. And so what the teachers will have the responsibility to do is to look at which of those processes work better, and which of those processes need to be improved. In terms of the timing, because they got the grant, literally, the grants became available and they got them in a matter of over a weekend. I mean, the teachers didn't have a lot of time to do advanced preparation. They applied and literally got them within 4 days. So the time frame to set this up and get it going was not as long as they would have liked. If they know now that they're going to be doing this next year, there is the opportunity for the teachers to work on this over the summer relative to refining the processes, because we do offer teachers opportunity for curriculum work in the summer. So they will be reflecting on it now, and they'll be reflecting on it over the course of the summer, and they will be looking to see particularly those places where, as I said before, they can do a better job of integrating it into the curriculum. There's always a challenge when you're working with students to find that sweet spot between what is feasible for them to do and what captures their imagination. And in some cases, the importance is in the science and the thinking more so than in the product. And there is a point where the teachers need to convey that to the kids to alleviate some of the pressures that the parents may be feeling to come up with that preeminent final product. Because at the end of the day, we don't want the parents doing the project. Right. We want the kids doing the work.
Well, some of it was also like impossible for some kids to do. And I've spoken to many parents, and I know they showed results of the survey, but a lot of parents had similar issues. And, you know, I can't speak for the students, but sometimes maybe students you know, are more favorable in a survey, and it's not really that accurate. And the key is certain things were like a parent had to cut a piece of wood or sew things. You know, there was a lot more involved than something a student could do themselves. So that's part of the thing. And, you know, just one other thing that I did want to say, this was a great idea, but it was an investment of 6 weeks of science class that they did not follow their curriculum, and a lot of downtime during class. Not every project group was able to do things during class time. So I can tell you there were a multitude of days that my daughter came home and said, we didn't do anything. There was no computer, there was nothing, so they just basically sat around. So basically, they had to come home and take care of what they could.
And that was part of what the teachers reflected on in terms of their approach.
They did mention that.
And they did mention that, so they're cognizant of it. In some cases, moving forward, they may determine that it is better to do it in a more compressed time frame daily, as opposed to trying to balance doing the regular curriculum at the same time. If some of the projects can be done in such a way that they are more blended with the curriculum, there'll be enhancements and enrichments to the curriculum. And therefore, there won't be that disconnect from that point either. So rather than trying to duke all of that out tonight, the best place is for, we will direct Mrs. Bajaj to get more feedback from the parents so that we get that window in as well. The kids were pretty candid in their assessments. Not all of the graphs that you saw up there were all skewed just to one side. They are aware of the challenges, and our job is to make that better. But I do believe that, and I appreciate your saying, that the fundamental idea was a good idea, but it needs to be improved upon. That's a good problem for us to have, as I said before, because I'd rather be grappling with how to make it better than having kids sit there saying they had the same old boring science every day and that they weren't excited and they weren't enthusiastic about it. And so we do have to take the good with the things that need to be improved.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you, Ms. Bard. Anyone else?
So, you know, that it was maybe not as successful as it was presented to me.
We hear you, though. We do hear the sentiment being portrayed.
We're there, there's these three.
And if I might just add, personally, I was actually sorry that nothing came home because I had nothing to do on eCyber Mission. My son actually completed everything in class, was very excited about it, and talked about it endlessly, and I was actually dying to see it, but I never got to see it. But similar to service learning, I know that when we did service learning this year, the paper came home that the parent had to sign off on, so that it just kind of says you're aware of this and that you're okay with this particular project that your child is embarking upon. And not that the parent should be doing it, but that you're aware of it. And perhaps something as easy as that, along with some other measures about how it fits in with the curriculum and time. And I think a lot of the issues that have been raised really have to do with having a professional development time set aside for them, which is in the plan, so that they can really evaluate how to do that better. And I would say, to be fair to the teachers, that some of them were the first to raise their hand and identify some of the things that you're saying, you know.
Thanks, Ms. Cleary. All right, we'll close this portion. There'll be one other opportunity for public comment before the end of the meeting, and move on to the business function. Mrs. Saradaki, where appropriate, feel free to block motions.
1BUS is the approval of the staff training. Move that the Board of Education approve the superintendent's recommendations for staff training reimbursements on the report dated May 29th. 2BUS is acknowledgement of the disbursement listings for various bank accounts. 3BUS is the acknowledgement of the receipt of the security and fire drill reports for the month of April 2014. 4BUS and 5BUS, yep, that's what I was going to say, were voted on at the previous May meeting. 6BUS is the award of the asbestos abatement bid for the summer. We were fortunate in having 10 bids ranging from $228,000 to $347,000, and I'm recommending that we go with the lowest bid of $228,000 from the GL Group. I was just going to add 2 more into the block. 7BUS is the award of the sale of technology equipment. We received 1 bid, and it was in the amount of $1,750. And 8BUS is the award for the bid of the fire alarm systems. We received 2 bids, and I'm recommending that we go with the lowest bidder, Hague Service Corporation, at a cost of $524,000. I'm sorry.
No.
$524,000. That is the first subtotal you'll see, because we are choosing, if the board okays that, to not go with the alternate, which is the second floor of the high school. It is fully alarmed, it's all working, and it wasn't a cost we budgeted for. The cost was a little bit over the budget, and so we would recommend taking $158,907 from the capital reserve for the difference for the base bid. So that's items 1 through 8.
The last item?
The $524,000 should be the total of...
It's a subtotal.
Yes, the subtotal. It's Terrell Middle School and the high school without the alt A1.
But the 158 is needed to get to the 524?
Yes.
Is that where it's a good spot to stop the block?
Yes.
Okay, let's have a motion.
So moved. Second.
Then let's have any questions or comments now.
Mm-hmm.
Have anything more?
No.
Oh, okay.
I do. Just for
Yes, Ms. Cleary.
clarity, I'm sure it's fine, but I don't understand why we wouldn't have it on the second floor.
No, we have a fire alarm, a working fire alarm system.
We have a working fire alarm system.
The first floor is a problem.
Okay, and it's independent of the first and second floor, independent of
Yes.
each other? I see.
The
Okay.
first floor has problems. We've had alarms go off when we weren't expecting them to, and we're replacing it with what's an addressable system, which means they can determine exactly which sensor went off, and they can look at a computer to determine that.
Oh, great, okay.
So the second floor won't have that advantage, but it has a fully functioning fire alarm system.
Okay.
How old is the system that we're replacing now?
How old is the system?
Is it, it's been there forever, like, type of thing? Okay.
So,
no idea.
Yeah, Terrell is probably original to the building.
So if I'm understanding, we went to bid for the second floor to get the latest technology to basically see what it would cost us. And you're saying that $135,000 is not worth it to pinpoint the sensor?
No, if the board would like to.
No, I'm
we
just,
can-
but but that's basically what it would be.
It won't be covered.
We'd
Yes.
still, there's a fire. We're going to get, the alarms will go off.
Yes.
It's just on the second floor, we won't be able to necessarily say it's here versus there.
They'll know what section it's in, they won't know the exact sensor. They will have to go, yeah.
Okay.
So it's still in a section that will be identified.
I'm not advocating for it, I'm just seeing what that 135 is really buying us.
What I did was verify that if we went out again, if we decided to do the second floor, would we pay more than the 135 because it's a separate
sole,
job?
yeah.
And probably not. We probably, yeah.
Good answer.
So the recommendation is the 524?
Right.
Perfect.
That's the motion.
I'm sorry, yes, Mrs. Warner.
Thank you. This is a lot of money and a very, very important system. So I would appreciate more information on this, if you would, now or later. But as to the type of system selected, and I apologize for not bringing this to you earlier.
I don't know the exact kind of system, but I do know that the goal was to get a system that was on the mark, that was a recognized system that would be in business for an extended period of time, and one where you could buy or get service from multiple places. There are systems that are very limited where that company is the only service company, and we didn't want to do that. Excuse me?
No, I was talking to myself, sole sources.
Yes.
Where they get you on the
Yes.
back end with the replacements
Right.
and maintenance and all that.
And we wanted something where we could get replacement parts, if needed, from various sources.
Good. Can you just say more about who participated in the selection? You know, what contractor list it came off? Who else uses this?
Well, we advertised the bid, and this was done through our architect. And this is one of the ROD grants we received, was for this. And actually, 2 of them, because it's 2 different schools.
You mean the Terrell and the high school?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
And our architect worked with his engineers as well as our director of buildings and grounds.
Okay.
To come up with what they thought the best system would be, type of system.
In putting it out to bid?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Keep going.
We had, I know they mailed to several places. They reached out to several companies. We only had 2 that actually wanted to bid on it.
Really?
It's partially because of the quantity of work right now. There's a lot of people doing alarm systems right now.
After the recent fire at the school, I would imagine.
Possibly, yeah.
If I might add, Mrs. Warner.
Oh,
right here.
I'm sorry.
In order to do these types of jobs, you have to be qualified by the state, and you have certain limits of the amount of work that you can handle. So as with all the ROD grants that have been granted throughout the
that's what I was
state,
thinking,
the contractors have a lot of work out there on their hands, and so therefore they're not able to bid on as many projects.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And I know we were ahead of the curve on that, so I was thinking that would serve us well in this bidding process because, we were out there earlier than others, but is that not true now? Are people catching up?
Yeah, I don't know that this is just because of the ROD grants out there, because I haven't heard of any other districts. I'm sure there are, but I haven't heard of other districts personally in talking to other BAs that are working on fire alarm systems. But it's true that they are required to be registered specifically for this with the state, and the state tells them when they register as a contractor, they are given a limit in the amount of jobs they're allowed to have open.
Okay. But who's regulating the type of system that we're putting in?
That was a consultation with the engineer, the architect, and our director of buildings and grounds.
Fire systems are, of incredible importance, obviously. I mean, you just, so let's just take a moment and realize that lives are at stake. Families put their children in schools that they trust are going to be protected adequately by a fire alarm system. So I just want, to make sure that, we're selecting the best system possible because of the, what's at stake. And I know you always do a thorough job, but I do feel like our role is to hear, the thinking and the work that you put into it to make sure we are, getting the right system. So, so usually you often have systems that have been reviewed by the state already or by the county, system, or a county system before it goes on the list to make sure, and only the qualified bidders or systems go on the list. Is that?
Well, my understanding is it's very similar to systems we have in a couple of the other schools.
Okay. Similar, but not
It could be the same. I could find out. I can get you the brand and model if you want to know that information.
Well, I don't know anything about them. I do know that they're a special, it takes special expertise, and they're hard to find, and it takes a lot of work to drill down, to get the right system and people.
And that's why the bid came out to more than we originally anticipated, because we wanted to make sure every part of the first floor of the high school was done in the manner that it should be.
Well, Good.
Including, you know, the underground tunnels and things like that, that are
Mhm.
used for
Yeah.
power, gas lines and such.
Yeah, right. Okay. So you have every confidence in this? You've done everything possible to ensure that this system is...
I have confidence in our architect working with the engineer that he has and with our Director of Buildings and Grounds.
And I think that's the important part, if I can jump in, that whereas Mrs. Saradaki brings to our district many skills, project management, expertise in a variety of business functions, one of the reasons why when you look at our bills list and some of the things we've approved over the past, we put a lot of faith in the bonding and the expense of our architect, our third-party providers, as they're known collectively, because they're the ones, when it gets to these important issues that you're so correct on, Mrs. Warner, related to safety, be it the locks and the replacements of the windows or the doors, that while, again, Mrs. Saradaki does a mean financial statement, she's, you know, her locksmith expertise may leave something to be desired, but therefore, we subcontract out to the experts. And I think concern is always warranted. Questions on letting the public know how that process plays out and what went into it. I think when all is said and done, that the fact that you've gone, and as Mr. Boehm, our board attorney, has noted as well, the fact that anyone who's looking to submit a bid needs to be qualified by the state. So the pool that we can select from is limited to those who have already gone through pre-qualifications, if I'm restating what you said accurately. Correct. Too. So,
So on that, Mr. Whitehouse, it's the person went through, did the system go through, is what I'm asking. And I'm hearing that the system didn't, the person did, but not the system, but the system is meeting the specifications of our architect.
And
Potter,
his engineer.
So Potter has an engineer?
He has more than one that he works with,
okay.
yes.
And, okay.
And every project he's ever presented to us has gone through his engineer also.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
thank you, Ms. Warner. Thank you, Ms. Saradaki. Any other questions or comments?
The fire alarm system, that is something that would have run through the Facilities and/or Finance Committee.
It would have, except that it went through the ROD grant procedure, so we already discussed it as far as a project we were going to do when we talked about which ROD grants we were applying for.
So that means we've seen this before, this is nothing new.
I'm on those, and we, you know, we had a list and never really focused on this system.
No, we didn't have the system at that time.
Right.
Yeah.
But obviously, you go through the same procedure with all of the bids and follow all of the rules and guidelines, and that's how we come upon the bids and the people and the typical systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kulikowski. We just want to make sure the public is aware we've got high-functioning systems, high-functioning third parties that we rely on. And Catherine, as the only student in this room, those underground tunnels, they're just for cables all, so don't tell all your friends to go like on a scavenger hunt with a couple weeks of the...
underground tunnels.
Yes, exactly. My ears perked up for a minute, and I'm like, wait, they're gas lines and wiring, so nothing's out there for you to go hunting for. Okay, any more questions or comments on the first block in the business? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Go on, Mrs. Saradaki.
And 9BUS I wanted to explain to you. It's award for the bid for food service equipment. We received 4 bids. 2 of them came in with the brand name that we had designated that we would like. 2 others substituted, which they're permitted to do. We did a comparison of the 2, taking into account, first of all, that the substitute brand was a lighter gauge steel. And we also took into account that if we purchased the substitute brand, if a piece broke in one school or in one location in a school, we wouldn't be able to substitute those pieces, whereas right now at Terrell and the high school, and in Park 5th grade, we have all the same type of components, so you can take one and move it into another line. The other pieces were slightly different measurements in height and depth, so you wouldn't be able to do that. So I reviewed this with our attorney, and we are recommending that we go with consistent brand throughout the district. So the bid is not appearing as the lowest bid, but it is the lower price of the ones with the brand that we are using right now. So.
What are we talking about, money-wise?
9 BUS.
Here, it's on 9 BUS.
Well, in reality,
$4,000 difference.
you're talking about a $4,000 difference. The other thing is the ones that have the brand that we would like offer a $3,500 credit for kitchen supplies. So in reality, the difference is about $300.
Okay.
So.
Any other questions or comments on 9? All in favor?
Do we have a second?
We didn't have a first or a second.
Yeah, I'll make a first, or...
Oh, then why are we asking questions on this? Hold on here. All right, can I have a, I'm sorry, and a second? Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, again, back to blocking where you can.
Okay. 13 BUS, 10, 11, and 12 were voted on at the last meeting. 13 BUS is a submission of facility applications for renewal for 2014-15. That's the renewal for our temporary instructional space in the modulars at both Terrell and Park, and the toilet room facilities for early intervention, pre-K, and kindergarten classrooms. 14 BUS is the renewal of our professional services contract with Effective School Solutions for the 2014-15 school year at the amount of $251,500. 15 BUS is related services through private vendors. It's 2 contracts with Spectrum Consulting and 1 with Morris Union Jointure Commission in the amounts of $1,000, $18,200, and $15,000. 16 BUS is the approval of the 2014-15 contract with Strauss Esme for our policy alerts, and that is a cost of $2,445. 17 BUS is the approval of contract with Frontline Technologies for the ASOP program, which we use for our attendance in the district, and that's an annual cost of $15,495.48. 18 BUS is the designation of official depositories for the 2014-15 school year. We're utilizing TD Bank, and we're continuing it with the same signatures required for all of the accounts that have been used in the past. 19 BUS, the annual approval to acquire services and purchase supplies for the 2014-15 school year. Let's move that the Board of Education authorize the business administrator to advertise for bids, utilize the state contract purchasing co-op such as Middlesex Regional, Ed Data Service. We also use Hunterdon and Morris County. 20 BUS is the renewal of the NJSIAA membership for 2014-15, and that's at a cost of $2,150. It's the same as it was last year. 21 BUS is the approval of the school lunch prices for 2014-15. I think I explained that these are all calculated through a spreadsheet, and so we really don't have a lot of choice in the actual dollars. 22 BUS is participation in the Hunterdon County Educational School yes, Cooperative Pricing System for the 2014-15 school year. There is no cost to participate with that. 23 BUS are the business reports. She missed the first line, but it's the board secretary and treasurer's monthly financial reports for the month of April 2014. 24 BUS, approval of the bill list in the amount of $4,163,955.77 for the period April 18th through May 23rd, 2014. 25 and 26 BUS were voted on at the previous meeting. 27 BUS is the purchase and installation of Terrell Middle School auditorium art rooftop units. And I'm asking the board to approve Kalen's installation under the Ed Data Services bid for a total cost of $73,345 to be transferred from capital reserve. 28 BUS is the acceptance of the 2014-15 No Child Left Behind allocation for Title I, Title II, Part A, and Title III, for a total of $191,086. Do you want me to stop there or keep going?
You can keep going if,
okay.
I'm fine with.
29 BUS is upgrade to the elementary wireless network systems and district routers. Move that the board approve the installation of these upgrades at a price of $238,551.85. 30 BUS is acknowledgement of the bus evacuation drills, the second ones that took place during the spring. They're required twice a year. 31 BUS is the purchase of Front Row Pro digital systems. We purchased some of these last year, and we'd like to purchase some more this year for the classrooms. It's the purchase of 100 Front Row Pro digital systems at a total cost. This includes some additional microphones at a total cost of $115,500 from Troxel Communications, which under the Middlesex Regional Educational Services Commission bid. 32 BUS is painting of Terrell Middle School auditorium. Request that the board approve painting, and that is on the addition to the agenda. With GL Group under the Ed Data Services contract of cost of $45,900. They will be painting the walls, the ceiling, and also putting the popcorn paint in the back half of it for sound. 33 BUS, 2014-15 Art Kohler Child Nutrition Program. This is to allow our student who attends the Art Kohler school program, this is approved every year, that they can provide meals for the student that we have attending there.
So moved.
Second.
Am I at the end?
There's
oh,
no,
there's
there's
no.
there's
one more.
There's 34.
Oh, there's one more.
There's 34.
Sorry.
This is award of a transportation bid. It's a replacement. We had, actually, the company, the first company on the list, opted to not renew with us. They were charging us more than any one of these bids, and they opted not to renew with us, but then they decided to bid on the route. But we're awarding to Vogel Bus Company at $175, which will be a savings for next year. And
beautiful.
I think that's it.
Lose, you lose.
Any
Would you like
questions?
to remove that with 34? Did you?
Yes,
Amy?
so moved.
Second.
Questions or comments on anything from the second block? Yes, Dr. Kulikowski.
Color are they going to be painting, Tara?
We haven't picked a color.
Please. Something with color.
Something that's going to match those $208 seats, I hope.
Make them look nice. Just curious.
Who is going to decide?
Oh, no, I'm going to cut it off right here.
Doc Holloway should have to decide.
He has been
He
very
beat those
involved in any
seats to death.
decisions.
Okay, any other questions or comments on anything on the business report?
I do have a question, actually,
Yes.
on 31. I'm just not familiar with Front Row Pro Digital. I don't know what that is.
The sound systems that we use in the classrooms, the audio.
Oh, okay, for students in...
When the teachers wear the lavaliette and it projects the sound.
Yes, okay.
So that students can hear better.
Thank you, I didn't know what that was.
We started those with classes that had hearing impaired
That's
students.
what I thought, yeah, but now it's used widely. Ah,
Yeah.
excellent, okay. Thank you.
Questions or comments more?
28.
Yes.
No, 29. The wireless network upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
Are we getting additional bandwidth? These are replacement routers?
Dr. Mast?
Our routers, our main router and our switches were at end of life, so we were not able to
fact, they were dead,
capitalize
weren't
on
they?
our bandwidth.
Okay, fine.
On the,
Mrs. Warner?
What happened to someone who was going to donate the in-the-wall system or something? Remember at the high school?
That was Verizon. It wasn't due to our bandwidth.
We're still going back and forth. CAP reviewed the contract that they wanted us to sign and found several things that were problems. We went back to them, they came back to us, we've gone back to them again, so we're still waiting for an answer on that.
So if that were to come through to CAP's satisfaction, would that replace something that we're spending money on?
No, it's a totally separate system.
All righty, thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Mrs. Saradaki.
You've been busy, well done.
Okay, I see nothing under
Well done.
policies, so no
Thank you.
updates, no new board business. Other board business, request to attend workshops, workshop reports.
Well, I will just say that the Garden State Coalition had their annual meeting on Wednesday, and we had nice representation. Mrs. Winkler and Mrs. Cleary and Dr. Mast and our superintendent were there. It was a very busy meeting. We heard from the Department of Education's Chief Performance Officer about testing and park and those kinds of things. We heard from the legislative panel, and it was an interesting panel. 2 Democrats, 1 Republican, all Assembly people, giving their thoughts about the current budget situation and whether education would be affected or not, and some of those kinds of things. And then we also heard from 2 journalists, political correspondent from NJTV and John Mooney from NJ Spotlight. And it was all actually very interesting. And the Scotch Plains Fanwood District was reelected as a trustee district. So we'll continue to have input on the executive committee.
Very good.
And maybe others have something else to add.
I think you did a fine job, Mrs. Bauer.
Good story.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for your attendance. 2 OBB we covered in last meeting. 3 OBB.
They're on the next page.
They are, right, this, can I have a motion for approval of our board meeting dates for 14 and 15? That's really based on the way the school year cuts. We approved our board meetings through basically the end of the school year, the student school year, if you will. So this is just taking us from this coming August through next June.
So moved.
Question? Oh, second, thank you. Questions or comments on it? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll look for that up on our website, lickety-split. Let me see, wait, approval, all right, 4 OBB. Dr. Kulikowski, would you please move, I think it's appropriate as the chair of this negotiation committee, we have an additional agenda Would you like to move the motion for the ratification of
Yes, I
the
would.
supervisors?
Thank you. So I'd like to move that the Board of Education does hereby approve the memorandum of agreement as negotiated between the Supervisors Group and the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education for the period of July 1, 2014 to June 30 of 2017.
So moved.
This is the movement, you're the second.
I'm the second.
Questions or comments? I think the biggest thing is for the public, if you would just go, I mean, there's very minor changes in the overall language of the contract. I guess it's basically just the percentages, if you'd share that with the public.
Sure, the percentages were 2.5 for the first year, 2% and 2% for the second and third years respectively.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Dr. Kulikowski. Thank you, Board. Going to Policy 9322-R for the third and final time this evening. Anyone wishing to address the Board?
Minutes approval?
Did I miss something?
Well,
Oh, I missed
don't
it
have an
there. Okay,
asterisk
we'll do
there.
that after public comment. Because I don't think we're going to have. Anyone wishing to address the Board? Okay, we'll close this portion and take a half step back. Could I have a motion to approve the April minutes, both public meetings as well as both executive sessions?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments, or any needs for abstentions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Board. Now let's move on to the good of the order. Anyone for the good of the order? Mrs. Winkler.
Hi, so today I went over to Park Middle School for their Service Learning Day of Sharing, which is one of my favorite things to attend. I love talking with the students and getting their input, their excitement about the projects that they've been working on. And particularly for service learning, it was a big push for us as a district, and it's just exciting to hear them talk about their projects. You walk over and say, hey, tell me about your project, and all of a sudden they all light up and just start telling you what they did and what they wanted from it and where they went with it, and it's fabulous. And they get all excited, and then I often will ask them, so you think you'll do that again, or you think you'll continue with this kind of service? And I'd say the majority of them just light up and say, oh yeah, definitely, going back next week, or it's already planned, and I love it. I have to put a shout out to our social studies teachers who coordinated it, and it was fabulous.
Good. Thank you for representing us, being one of maybe a few representatives
Wanted
there.
to go, but I had to work today.
Yeah. I was picking up a prom dress, but I digress. It would have been a lot cheaper to go to Park today. Anyone else for the good of the order?
I don't know if Mrs. Cleary was going to say something, but I just wanted to say that I thought it was wonderful that we've had, and we had, I think, since our last meeting, the final strategic planning meeting. But I think we had a really good turnout and a variety of people, and I just thought it was fascinating, actually, how much there was in common among people and groups in the discussions for the strategic planning moving forward. When you were talking about service learning, I was thinking of strategic planning because it was such a part of our last strategic plan. So.
And if I could just, thank you for that. It did slip my mind, actually. But one of the things I have to say again is just thank you, especially to the students that came out, because as we saw, it just gives a very interesting perspective that we don't always get. And hearing from the young people tonight, it reminds us of why we are doing what we're doing. And it's nice to have their input on it. And it brought certain things to light that I think are really important to consider. I think the process was great. I would like to publicly say thank you to Gwen Thornton from New Jersey School Boards, who led us so well and is still working, compiling and all of that. And we should have some very interesting discussions coming out of it.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else?
So I was also at Park Middle School Service Learning Day today, and one of the things that was most remarkable to me is the ways in which the students have moved away from just simply doing projects that involve the raising of money. The teachers have worked really hard to move the kids into areas where the kids actually do the service themselves, and that was very remarkable in a number of the projects that they heard, that I heard them present today. So we'll be sharing, there's a booklet actually of a list of all the different projects that they did, and there's a lot to be proud of there. We had a wonderful spring concert. I know that they had one at Terrell the other night and Park, and the high school choral concert last week was absolutely amazing. But we also have one new thing that's coming up that is really a very wonderful opportunity. We have a student who graduated from our high school who has really distinguished herself by participating in an event that is called Clipper Around the World. Her name is Meg Riley. She's a 2008 graduate of SPFHS, and she has spent a good portion of the last year sailing around the world in the Clipper Around the World yacht race. And what? The Clipper Round the World yacht race. And she will be coming to our high school on June 4th and presenting to not all of our students at the high school, but a good number of our, they're focused pretty much, I think, on the 9th grade, and perhaps some of the students in our Global Perspectives courses. She is going to be talking about the experience that she's had sailing around the world. Her team is currently in first place, and wow. She has learned, this wasn't something she started out doing, she learned to sail through this process. So more to the point, what she does is she talks about the development of team dynamics and leadership, as well as bringing global perspectives to the work that's done. So we're really looking forward to having her come back and share at her alma mater. She has done presentations in schools around the world, because when they go into the different ports of call, that's part of the work that they do. And so we're really pleased to share that with you and invite you to come and listen if you can be available. It will be on June 4th at 12:50 p.m. for about an hour at the high school.
Yeah, June 4th.
Excellent. I see Mrs. Rowland still in the back. Could you just send a reminder email, just because we're, scrap pieces of paper and all that? Okay.
What time?
Thank you.
12:50.
June 4th.
12:50.
12:50.
50? We'll give you the actual time, but currently it's scheduled for 12:50.
Yes, I had said in executive session, as we hit June, board members, just check your board email accounts every day, just as a suggestion. It could be in the morning, could be at the end of the day. Just look every day, because we're going to get, lots of different invitations and lots of things. It's a busy time for students as, faculty, but also board members, as we're already starting to see as service learning, days of celebration, and things along those lines. So it's a good idea to keep on top of our emails. Anyone else for the good of the order?
Oh, well, no, but we didn't do the committee reports, right?
We did.
Yeah. Oh, yep. I missed it. But, well, I sent around my report, so I don't have to do it.
All right, well, if there's anything that's important enough to carry over, our next public meeting will be June 12th, and then our second meeting in June will be the 26th. Sandwiched in between, our graduation will be June 19th, which is a Thursday. We look forward to seeing you at our meetings, graduation, and again, there will be a lot of other student recognitions, faculty recognitions, and a whole plethora of things for where you'll see us out and about, hopefully. So, safe June, and we'll see you on the 12th. With that, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. So moved.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
See you soon, folks.